let's go over everything you guys need for delivering the final project. Let's start with the evaluation sheet. Everything is detailed here with the points that you're going to need. So first thing, assignments. Assignments was the beginning on week 1. Everybody was supposed to send me a copy of the syllabus. That was 5 points. Assignment given in class, that is the assignment of you guys sending me an email or putting it on the discussion chat on Canvas of the song arrangement. Here's the original, here's the arrangement of the song. And then, so that's simple, taken care of. That's 10 points. Demo submissions. During the semester, you guys brought demos, submitted in class. That's great. But what I will need from you guys, and let me pull up this is, let me go over here. I think yes, I use Greg as an example. So you guys create a demo folder within the folder that you're uploading to OneDrive with everything. You create a demo folder, and in this demo folder, you're going to put rough mixes of the 2 songs that you produced. Okay. Now you're going to put, you're going to create a little text document. And then on that text document, you're gonna put Sugar, telephone, and email. And if it's a band name, put the name of the band, and then put the name of the individual members that you have, and 1 contact. In case of Greg with Sugar, no, just put Sugar and put Sugar's email. The idea of this was that these demos we would archive, and future students could contact those demos, and Lacey would keep track of this. And we could contact those bands and say, oh, here's a new semester. Do you have a new song that you'd like to track? We've had you before, so come on in. And then that way Lacey keeps building on her arsenal of local bands and musicians. This case, because of COVID and stuff, everything is from Valencia students, but still, I want the process to stay the same. Put a little text document that says the name and the email, if phone number if possible, but at least a name and an email, okay? If you have 1 person, then you should have 2 songs, one contact. If it's 2 different artists that you work with, 2 songs, 2 different text documents with the contact information. Okay.
Cool. We don't need the contact info for the mix only, right?
No, because you guys didn't work with them.
Got it.
This is for whoever you developed as an artist. And then that covers the demo submission. Upload the two songs, rough mixes of the 2 songs. If you have another type of demo, MP3 video, cool. If it's one of the songs from SoundCloud, download it and put it there. Again, worst case scenario, just do a rough mix of the song, put it there, call it so and so song, rough mix, MP3, done. Okay. Recording. In this case, instead of recording being 20 points split through 4 songs, is 20 points split through 2 songs. What I need to see is that you actually recorded 4 instruments, 4 different instruments. It can't be all voices, and we've discussed this before. So voice, guitar, bass, drums, those are 4 instruments. There you go. One of these songs needs to have drums recorded. If there's no drums on either, I will take points off of those 20. If you have 3 instruments instead of 4 on the songs, I will take points off of that. Everything needs to be, if I hear something that was recorded incorrectly, for example, you were recording a flute and you put a 414 and you didn't pay attention of which direction the 414 was aiming at, and you pointed the front of the microphone away from the flute, so you recorded the flute in the room instead of the flute directly, I will take points off of that. Okay, those are the things to keep in mind. But I need to see, what I need to see is, and let me switch over here for a minute. When I open the Sugar session, I will see the two sessions, the 2 folders with each one with each song. Okay, then let me come over here again. What I want to see is a session that, here's the initial session, like gone. Here's the initial session. And if you did vocals in another session, great. If you did guitar overdubs in another session, great. Something that shows, here's the initial tracking session. I will open that session and see how you set it up. And that's it for the recording points. It's mainly, I open an actual recording session from Pro Tools, open it up, see that the 4 instruments are there, and get an idea of your workflow with it. Mixing, the bulk of the project is here in the mixing. First portion of that is editing, comping, editing and comping tracks in session, all tracks and audio clips named properly by instruments, identifying characters. Okay, so I should see another session that's labeled edit, and in that session I will be able to open it up and see a whole bunch of regions clips there, and see that there's a fade in, there's a fade out, that there's crossfades in between edits, and I will make sure that none of the tracks say audio 1, audio 2, whatever tracks are color coded, however you want to color code, I don't care, but voices should be one color, guitars should be another, bass should be another, drums, percussion, however you feel you need to organize it, so there's visually, you can just tell that there's multiple things happening. And that's important. That's a practice that's been done for decades before Pro Tools. If you would go to a mixing session by big engineers, their assistant engineers would have a cup with multiple colors of Sharpie, and they would put console tape on the board, and drums, they would use a Sharpie of one color. Guitars would be a Sharpie of another color. Vocals and background vocals would be a Sharpie of a different color. Because when you have a 48-channel console, and you're trying to figure out initially where everything is, an assistant engineer would prepare the session for you. So you would be able to show up, sitting behind the console, and go for the color and know, oh, that's red, here's where the vocal is, let's hit play on the reel-to-reel, and I can now start finding things and listening to the things and soloing, and start getting a good rough mix going, and start writing some automation right off the bat, instead of having to take several minutes and look and read every channel to find out where everything is on a 48-channel console. That gets adopted to Pro Tools, so now you have the color coding system here, and it speeds up everything. Same thing, if you're not the mixing engineer, and part of this process that I'm making you guys do with the mix is under the assumption that not everything that you produce you will mix. So you want to make sure that you have a habit of making things as simple as possible for whoever is a guest to your production. Okay. Color coding, names, everything's everything's edited correctly, come correctly, no clicks and pops, nothing without any issues without crossfades and stuff like that. Next is the mix prep session created per song according to the guidelines. Here are the guidelines. And again, both of these sheets are on your Canvas and your Canvas class files. You go to the File tab and it's right there. Step 1, you have your song title. Let me pull up this session here so you see how I have it labeled there. So once you've finished editing the song, you start this process and then save the session, song title, consolidate. I have it right here, consolidate and purge. I did it all in one in this case, but consolidate. All tracks must be labeled properly. Tracks should be named according to the instrument or name that describes what it is on track. Don't repeat the exact name. Pro Tools won't allow you to do that anyways. That doesn't mean that you don't, for example, if you have 6 background vocals, I just put BGV 1, BGV 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's fine. Make sure all edits have crossfades, clips faded in and out. Again, that's part of the editing process. Highlight all the tracks on the session from beginning to end, and then consolidate all the tracks. And you go to edit and consolidate. Then part 2, song title, you do a save as, song title, purge. You delete all unused playlists, delete all unused hidden tracks, close session, reopen it to purge the undo history, select all unused tracks, and then remove all unused tracks. Make sure you remove them, don't delete them. And then hold down Option click. That way it doesn't ask you, are you sure 100 times. Open clip bin, triple click on the ruler and make sure that only the consolidated files are left in the session. Now save as song file mix prep and mix prep like you see right here. And then on the mix prep, that's the session you start using to actual mix this session. If you guys already mixed this before you did this process, that's fine. Just finish the mix, then do this process. I just need to see the labeling done this way. Okay. Once you are finished with the song, session save as, song title, archive. Select all audio input options, interleaves. I'll show this now. And I was doing this so that you would have 2 sessions. You will have the session that has all the data, all the good and bad takes. And then the archive one is the one that would have only the finished edits and consolidated files. And then this full file, this folder, the size should probably be half the size of the original tracking session. The idea is you don't have in this archive, you only have the, let's say, 24 tracks of consolidated audio, nothing additional in their audio files folder. This is what you SIP, and this is what you send to the label, to the mixing engineer, because by the time it gets to a mixing engineer, there should be no doubts of what are the proper takes. The mix engineer's job is not to make the decision for the band or for the producer of what is a good take. This should be all ironed out before it goes to the mix engineer. So what you're sending to him is everything that you've committed to. And once you've committed to that, you send it, and then that simplifies the session, makes it run smoother, more efficient, and that way you also avoid the mix engineer pulling up the wrong take or getting things confused and adding things to the song that don't need to be there, okay? I don't necessarily need you guys to do this take, because this will just make the files, the upload files, a lot bigger. But this is something I would normally want you to do, and this is a practice that you should do. So now I'm going to go over this quickly within Pro Tools. So let's open this session. Okay. So editing, comping, tracks in session. I discuss it. I discuss it right there. All tracks must be labeled. But basically, the first half of this is making sure that this is taken care of here. Okay. So these two things are explained here. So look at everything here is color coded. I use default blue for drums. I use purple for bass, brown for guitars. That's my salute to Van Halen and his brown sound. Piano, it's a habit I got from a pianist that I work with. Vocals, I tend to use red and pink for background vocals. I leave the default green for buses, default kind of burgundy for master, and then additional outputs and stuff, I tend to use non-color. Just you hit non and it's black, and that's it. Anything that I don't need to pay attention to, I'll just kind of put it that way. So everything's labeled, but now here's some regions that I deleted, because we go over here. This was probably a different take than what's here, and then I needed to do a little crossfade. So make sure you go in through everything. If there's any edits, make sure that everything's crossfaded. And then you go to the very end, and then you cross and you do a fade out. And make sure that you listen to your fade outs. Go ahead, you play it. You make sure that in this case, whatever symbols are ending, you're not cutting them too abruptly. Maybe change the curve a little bit so it takes, oh, actually, I need to do that, and do that. Listen to it so the symbols are dying off correctly, and once you're happy with it, great. Listen to it again. Cool. Okay, that sounds appropriate. Because remember, you're consolidating all this. So once you before you mix, so you're committing to this decision. Here's the bass. He let that note ring out more than I wanted it to. I wanted them to die out. I wanted that to be like a solid hit. So I let the bass ring out as long as I needed to. Here's some guitar parts. I let those reverbs that it had built in delay ring out just enough and then cut out. This I should probably in the final edit a little closer because this is probably just noise there. Yeah. So here's something I will just do like that. That's probably that little peak that you see here. It's probably him muting the strings or moving the guitar or something. So let's clean that up. Here's some edits I never cleaned up. So you come over here, do this, fix the edits, do a fade out. And I will sit down here at the end, just go to the end of the session and go track by track and just do fade outs. And again, I will listen to everything that I'm doing. So before I do a crossfade like that, I will listen to see what is that. That's probably noise floor from the amp. So I'll listen to it, solo it. Yeah, okay, that's white noise. And I don't need to hear anything. There's no verb, there's no delays, there's nothing there besides that the noise floor. So I'm going to just put it right there. So now the noise drops out immediately. I can even make it tighter if I want to. If it's on a complete blank space there, and that guitar noise, amp noise is going to be exposed, then I can make it really, really tight so the guitar note finishes and it cuts out. Okay, going instrument by instrument. I already did a fade out on the keyboards there, long fade out, vocals, fade out, background vocals, fade out. Here's some grouping I need to clean up. So do the same thing in the beginning of the song. Make sure that sometimes you will have a keyboard that has a ground hum, some noise, especially some vintage keyboards. So you want to make sure that there's no noise happening before the actual first note of the first instrument plays. So just make the habit of making a tight come in, fade in, and you have no excessive noise. These two tracks are the demo tracks. That's why they're there like that. Okay, so I have now gone track by track. Here's something I didn't want. Here's something I didn't want. Tighten that up there. Anything else? Here's a couple of takes I didn't clean up. I can do that. And same thing over here. Okay, you guys get the gist. All right, all cleaned up, all edited. Just to make sure, I will triple click right here. That highlights everything top to bottom, from beginning to end of the session. Now you do Command F, and I put a 5 to 10 millisecond default. And what I do is create new fade ins, new crossfade, new fade outs. I do not adjust crossfades because I already took the time to adjust all those crossfades to how I needed it. Adjust existing crossfade length. Don't do any of that because you should have already taken care of that when you were detailing everything. The point of this is if for any chance you missed a little edit here or there, this is just kind of CYA, and make sure that you don't get surprised later after you consolidate everything. Oh, you hear an edit click and you're trying to find out where it was, and this just avoids that problem. So that now you've taken care of editing and labeling, color coding. Come over here. You've already taken care of all that. So now you're gonna do save session as consolidate. Okay. And you call it consolidate. Actually, let me go ahead and just call it consolidate for the fun of it. And then I can do something else on the other one. Now it says delete all unused playlist, delete, consolidate. Make sure all edits go on crossfade, highlight all tracks on the session beginning to end, and consolidate all tracks. So actually there's a little bit of something here. I tend to put a marker where I feel that the song should end. And I do that as my end point for the mix. So when I am actually going to print the mix, I'm going to bounce it. I tend to put a marker that says intro or start and end, and I do like that, and then I print that. And every time I do a bounce, I always do it from start to end marker, so they're consistently the same length. And that way I don't have to figure out, am I cutting something off? What I will do is when I'm mixing something, I'll listen to it and I'll raise the volume on it, look at the meters, and I'll see when the very last reverb tail goes down, and as it's fading out, I'm raising the volume of my monitoring so I can hear the reverbs and delays decay. And when I feel okay, now the noise floor is overpowering whatever decay and reverbs and delays are there, mark it, that's the end, boom. And from there on, I just keep printing it that way. So if you triple click and this line, the highlighted area is going past your endpoint, that means you have audio happening over there, and you don't want that. Nothing should be past your endpoint, because there should be no audio past the end of the song. So now you go to consolidate clip, and the consolidate clip should be from end of the session to the beginning of the session. You do that by clicking at the very end, hold down shift, and go to return. And now you're making sure you're all the way to the end. If you triple click again here, it'll default to the beginning of the session, and it'll default to the very last piece of audio that you have there. Now that you've triple clicked everything, go to edit, go to consolidate clip, and everything's going to be consolidated there. Now you go to purge. We got more people showed up. Hi, Joseph. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm recording this, so you guys will, and I'll make sure to post it today. Okay, as you see here, all the tracks are consolidated. Everything is one solid region. And this is the end of the process. So I've already consolidated everything. Then I deleted all unused playlists. I deleted all hidden tracks. I closed the session, unused tracks, and then I purged the clip bin from anything that was unnecessary. Okay. So let me take a step back here and show you how you do all that. Delete all unused playlist. I have the habit of creating playlists per takes. When I have a band, you see here, I actually, within the actual name of the track, I put take.05. And I do that because every time you create a new playlist in Pro Tools, it adds a .01. And then when you do a new playlist, it'll just keep changing it to 02, 03, 05, continuing that way, okay? So I will, as a default for my band tracking session, it'll say kick in dash take .01. And then I will have, you see here, a group called tracking. All the instruments that I'm tracking for the band are grouped together. The only thing that's grouped together is a recording and input on it. Let me. So volume, if I need to lower everything quickly for monitoring purposes, but the record and the input monitoring are enabled. And the idea is if I have drums, bass, guitar 1, guitar 2, and vocals, and I'm recording all that together, I can hit record. All of them are engaged. Everything that has an actual input is going to be engaged, right? Then when I create a new playlist for a new take, all of those instruments that I'm recording will just go to a new playlist. Now, normally what I do is if take 5 is the take that I'm committing, great. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll create a duplicate take, and let me make sure this is, yep. I'll create a duplicate take, and then I'll go one by one and I change it from take to comp. And I just do this. Okay. So all of the drum tracks, the bass, the guitar, everything that was part of that initial rhythm section, that gets labeled as a comp track. And then on that comp track, I'm actually comping everything that I liked about the drums, the different fills, the different transitions, everything. And I do that so when I open up the session, maybe I tracked this and then a month later I edit it, and then a month or two later the band says we're ready for mix, we have the budget for it now. I can open up the editing session and I can see that it's labeled comp, and I know that I worked on this. There's no doubt on it because I've gone through my labeling and it says comp. So everything's comped, everything's where it needs to be. Back on delete all unused playlist. You go to a little drop down arrow here, you go to delete unused. Select, scroll down, hold shift, select. All these are takes. Look, I did several vocal harmony takes. here are all the drum takes. There's a lead vocal. For lead vocal, I did 12 takes of vocal 2. I did 10 takes of vocal 1. None of that I need. Deleted. I have to delete that because whatever shows up on an actual track or whatever shows up on a playlist, Pro Tools thinks it's being used. You need it. It needs to stay there because if it's on a playlist, it was important to you. So you delete all the unused playlists. So whatever is here on your screen is what's important. That's why I label everything comped. So if, let's say, you have a verse from take 1, a pre-chorus and a chorus from take 2, verse 2 was take 3, and the rest was take 4, it doesn't delete the master audio for all those takes. It just deletes whatever other takes you didn't use, whatever other portions of takes you didn't use. And that's important. That's why we consolidate everything. So delete all unused or hidden tracks. Here's the demo. I don't need that. Here is the click. I don't need that. This would normally by now be inactive. Whatever tracks I'm not using, I tend to default and do hide and make inactive like that. And then when I get to this process, show only inactive tracks. Here's everything I didn't use. Grab it, delete it. Yes. Done. Now show all tracks, and everything that's here is what I'm actually using. There might be still some other things. For example, I don't need the master faders for my headphone outputs. Delete that. Melodyne. I don't need Melodyne at this point on the consolidation process. I keep that in the editing session, so delete that. And everything else is good. Okay, so now delete all unused hidden tracks, close session, and reopen it. This is important. You have to close the session because everything that I just did stays, can stay on the undo history. Okay, that means that any audio that got deleted from the session is in the history, undo history, so it won't purge it completely until you do that. So you close the session, open the session again, it purges the undo history. Then you can do the next step, which is select all unused tracks and remove all unused tracks. So drop down, select unused. The difference between these two is this will select everything that's unused, the parent master audio file and all the little clips that it created from that parent. If you do this, unused audio except the whole file, that means if on drums there was 10 takes, I only used clips from take 3, 5, and 7. Everything else from those 10 I did not use. If I do this unused, it selects all takes from those 10 takes that I didn't use anything of. If I used just one fill from take 4, it'll keep it because I used some of that. It'll keep the root file and it'll keep the clip. Okay. So this really purges all the excess data that I do not need. All other 7 takes of drums are gone. If I do this, it'll keep all the root recordings, root files, audio files of all 10 takes, and it'll just purge whatever clips and edits I did. Just one quick question. Do you guys know how to identify what's a root audio file and what's a clip? Yes or no? Do you guys know how to identify that here in the clip bin? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was scrambling to get like my unmute button.
Okay,
It's the bold ones are the original ones.
correct. So if you look here, here's base DI, that's in bold, but there's base DI take 4, 22, 23, 24. These are clips. So let me, so here's base DI take 5. What I highlighted is just a clip. Here's a root file. That doesn't show up there. That is this. That's the whole file. As soon as I edit, it creates a new clip of that. And I edit again, watch over here, boom, it created a new clip. So once you've edited all your drums and bass, you will have a ton of clips. I don't need any of those extra clips. I only need the final clips. And right now, I only used the bass on take 5. Let me see. I used one little piece of take 4. Everything else was take 5. So take 1, 2, and 3, I used nothing of that. So there's no point in keeping the whole files. Only keeping what unused. So you go to unused, and there you go. Base 1, 2, and 3 are going to be deleted. The whole file for 4 won't be deleted, but regions 02 and 04 will be deleted. Region clip 03. Sorry if I'm saying region. Region is the old way of saying audio clips, and I still never completely got accustomed to it. So it'll keep 03 there because that's what's actually being used in the session. Now that you've selected all unused, you're going to clear and you're going to remove it. If you delete it, it deletes it from your session and it deletes it from your audio files folder. You don't need to do that because if we're still working from the same parent folder here, you want to keep all the takes and archive all the takes just in case something happens later. But what you want is to trim all the excess on that session, so when you're mixing, you're only using what you need. Okay, your RAM only loads up what is necessary. If you move to trash, it doesn't. It deletes it and moves it to the trash, and it's just gone. Okay, so what you want to do is remove it. Hold down the Option key and you hit remove, because if you don't, if I hit remove, it's going to ask you, do you still want to clear it? And it's going to ask you that question a dozen times, 100 times, depending on how many clips you're deleting. It'll keep asking you that. Okay, so hold down Option when you hit remove, and boom, it's gone. See, nothing gets highlighted. You're good. Sorry. Delete unused playlist. Delete unused and hidden tracks. Close session. Reopen it. Select unused tracks. Remove all unused tracks. Open and sorry, this unused clips. Open the clip bin, triple click on the ruler and make sure that only the consolidated files are left in. Now, I never consolidated anything here, but this is all these steps you do after you've consolidated everything, right? So let's go back to this one. So now that I've purged everything and everything's consolidated, all you should see here in the clip bin is bold audio files, none of the of regular unbolded files. And then I triple click and everything should be highlighted. If there's a blank space there, that means there's a region clip there, an edit that you forgot to purge, you did not take care of properly. And then this concludes the mix prep. Once all this is clear, there's no hidden tracks there, there's no unused playlist, now you do save as, mix prep, hit save it, perfect. So now we're here. Select all option. We're right here. Mix prep, begin mixing song. Cool. Now this last step is what you do for delivery. In your case, for this project, you guys are mixing it. And if any other project that you're mixing, great, that's done. Once a project is done, and you want to archive it, normally at this point, whatever didn't get used on the final mix, whatever didn't make it anywhere else, chances are clients won't need any of that. Okay, so what I'll do is save copy in. Audio files. I tend to do session plugin setting folders because when I mix, I create settings, plugin settings, specifically for that session, and I save it within the plugin setting folders. Select the current sample rate, 24-bit, hit OK, and then you're gonna create a new destination. Okay. And then you're gonna call it whatever else you need to call it. Did I specify something? Oh yeah, archive. Call it archive, hit save, and what it'll do is it'll take all your audio. Because right now, with all this process, because when you did the unuse, select unuse, and then you did clear remove, all your audio files are still there. All your takes are still there. But you have a whole bunch of things that you don't need now. So you don't need to necessarily archive all that. And again, this last step is what I do when I need to send this session to mixing to some outside engineer. This is what the label will ask you to do when you finish delivering the final production. I don't need to send any of this extra audio. When you do the save copy in, it'll take just these consolidated audio files, and I'll create a new folder within a new folder in a new session, and that audio files folder, instead of having all this, will now only have these 24 consolidated tracks. So you're going to go again from a session that has, let's say, 5 gigs to a session that might have 800 megs, because it's only these 24 tracks. So then when you're uploading this session to Dropbox and sending the link to whoever is mixing it or whatever label, it's a lot easier. It's a lot less data to zip and manage, and a lot less taxing on your internet service, on your upload and download service. Okay, and that's it. This last step here, I don't need you guys to do that this time, because I don't want to have 2 sessions. I don't want to have double the data, and you guys upload it to OneDrive. So basically, I need you guys to do step 1 through 2. 3 is just for you guys to know, as this is how you're supposed to send stuff to other people. Okay. So that is these 2 steps right here. Now, mixing of all songs in stereo to standard mix levels of -16 LUFS, no clipping. Sorry. All right. So mix all the songs in stereo. I had to add that line because I had one student who actually sent everything to a monobus and mixed everything as a monobus. The whole song was up the middle. I don't know how he did not notice that when you do that, there's no, it looks like this, there's no pan knobs. So there's nothing that you can do left to right. And when he did the bounce, he did he sent that bus, he created basically an aux track, make the input bus 1, and then the output was your monitoring output. So then he did a bounce to disk to 1 and 2. So he sent a stereo file, but the mix was mono. Everything was up the middle. So that's not allowed, because that's not how you do it.
I actually think I had a similar issue though, because I noticed that when we recorded the demo of In Bloom, when I was with Lacey, like we had the option to have the pan knobs on the track list, the instrument track list, or the mix, whatever it's called. And then when I went to do it in the API lab, they were all gone.
When you went to do mixing for it?
Yeah, when I went to do mixing in the API, the mix lab, and I pulled it up on Pro Tools, all the little knobs on the gray things, they were gone.
So yeah, the pan knobs, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you assigned, like here, if you assigned this guitar track, here is, I recorded the guitar on an SM57 and the same guitar on a 4033. If you assign both of this to a mono bus, then yes, there's no pan knob because it's mono. But if you assign this to a mono output, so for example, you're sending this one guitar to one channel on the API, then now the API has your pan knob. And that's fine, because you have a stereo console, and that one mono signal, you're sending it to a track, to a channel on the API. That channel on the API is going to a stereo bus, and there's a pan knob. Now you can engage the pan knob on the API, pan guitar 1 to one side, go to guitar 2, take both microphones like you see here of guitar 2, send them to output whatever on the API, engage the pan knob, pan it to the opposite direction, guitar 1, guitar 2. That's it. You're working within a stereo bus. Does that make sense?
I think so. So as long as like I have it panned on the board, and then I bounce it or
If you're
render
on the
it,
board, you're not bouncing, you're printing.
printing it, then I print it. How do I do that off the board again?
How do you do what off the board?
Print the panned stuff.
Well, you
To the
print the
file.
whole mix. So you go, if you're actually mixing in analog, and you've laid out all the channels on your API or Neve or SSL, you go to the patch bay, you go out of the master fader output, and on APIs they call it Grandmaster. You go out of the Grandmaster, patch it into a pair of inputs on your Focusrites, on whatever your A to D is. So you go left and right Grandmaster, let's say into input 1 and 2 of your A to D. Then you create a audio track, make sure it's stereo. You go to input 1 and 2, and you have to make sure that your output is to an output that you're not using on the board, because you will create a feedback loop. And I already had an intern do this once and blew up a pair of my speakers because he wasn't paying attention. So in my studio here and at Fat Planet, we have a separate stereo DAC that we use for monitoring. And that tends to be 4748. In my room, I have, actually, let me show you the I/O. There's an actual output labeled DAC, and that goes to a ASEBU DAC, and that's plugged into the monitoring. So I can go, I haven't created it on this I/O because this is a Studio B session. So I will assign it to DAC output, and that DAC output does not go to the console. That DAC output goes to whatever I'm monitoring from, okay? On an API and on the Neve, when you go to a monitoring section, you can monitor the stereo A bus, the stereo B bus, the Grandmaster, and you have 2-track playback monitoring, and you might have multiple 2-track playbacks. That 2-track playback is when you're printing to tape, you have to monitor the output of your 2-track that you're recording to. If you're printing to tape, you have to listen to the mix through tape so you know how it's sounding. If you're pushing the tape too hard and you're over compressing, you need to know that. If you're pushing it so hard that it's saturating, you need to hear that. This comes also from the fact that you used to print to tape, you would print to a CD recorder, you would print to a DAT, and you might print to something else. And all of these formats sounded different. So you're printing to all of these at the same time, and then later you listen to each format and decide, well, this song sounds great here, this song sounds great to to that. This song sounds great to that. And then you send all these formats to the mastering guy, and you're driving him crazy, but he needs to get all those elements like that. Okay, so you patch your your 2-track playback, your DAC, to your 2-track playback there on the board, and you're monitoring the return. You're monitoring the output of this track. So let me just mute that so I don't get a feedback loop. Let's say that doesn't exist, so it's going to gray out. But now you put your channel on input. You hit play on Pro Tools. All the different channels are going to the API, the Grandmaster. Everything's going to the Grandmaster. From the patch bay Grandmaster left and right, you're going into Pro Tools 1 and 2. Pro Tools 1 and 2 you assign to this audio track. The output of this audio track is going to your 2-track playback. So you go to your master section on the console. You've patched in from your 2-track, your DAC output into your 2-track playback, and now you're monitoring your 2-track playback. Are you guys confused yet?
Sort of, but I think I also get it.
This is standard practice when you're mixing in full analog. I have my whole rack here. All that. I don't know why it says complete your purchase. I have not purchased anything.
Ooh.
I swear. All right, so here's my converter. I have a Neve summing amp. I have a dangerous summing amp. So I have 8 channels going from this is a 24 output unit. So I have 8 channels going here, 8 channels going here. Both of these stereo outputs of the summing are going to input 1 and 2, input 3 and 4 in Pro Tools. So now I create those inputs into Pro Tools, and these get sent to 2 tracks. I record the audio tracks there, and the output of that mix gets sent to my actual DAC. And this DAC is what's actually plugged in to my speakers. This is my volume control. I can mute the speakers, and I can select the multiple inputs. So I have an input. Sorry, let me see if I can get this a little closer. So I can select from AES input, which is Pro Tools, USB, and Firewire. So I'll change the inputs according to what I need to monitor through. And then everything else is just processing that I do. But because I'm mixing in analog, I need to record the output of that analog summing amp into Pro Tools. So when you do an analog mix, there's no bounce to disk. There's no offline bounce to disk. You need to sit down, hit record, and play the song all the way through, and you listen, and then once you're done, you will have a stereo mix there. Now you highlight that stereo mix, and then you now do bounce to disk, and you can do it offline in that case, because you've already taken care of all that. Okay, what I do when I'm mixing an album, and then if I'm going to master an album, the same album, or if I'm going to take, let's say I got 10 songs, I'm going to send these 10 songs to the mastering guy at Fat Planet. I will now create a new session, call it mastering, and I'll import the actual mix. So this will be called Gone Mix 1. Then I can go to import session data on the mastering session. Actually, here it is. here is the actual print from the analog summing amp into Pro Tools. So I'll go session by session and I'll import this stereo file into that mastering session, and all the tracks are now there, labeled accordingly and everything else. Any questions?
Yes. So now let's say, just as like a fun what if question, let's say instead of sending each instrument to a channel on the board in the mix room, if I were to just simply mix it from Pro Tools and be listening at with the speakers as playback, would the knobs for the mono channels reappear, or
Yes.
would they still be disappeared?
No, it all depends. If I take this guitar track, let's say this is the two different microphones. If I assign this instead of to a hold on. This is, see how it says rhythm guitar to mono. If I assign this to the guitar bus, which is stereo, boom, they're there. Those knobs appear based on, are you sending it to a stereo bus or to a mono bus? It has nothing to do with, are you doing it on the API or Pro Tools? It has everything to do on the assignment of the bus, assignment of the routing. Are you going to a mono bus or a mono analog output, or are you going to a stereo bus or an analog output? So same thing. I can go to a stereo bus like you saw there, but I can go to an output and I can send it to one, knobs are gone. Or I can send it to a stereo analog output and the knobs are there. Make sense?
Yes, got you. Thank you.
All right. So again, whether you decide to do it on the board or not, in your case, you're just using the board for monitoring. If you're using the board for monitoring, I do not suggest that you go to I do not suggest that you go out of output 1 and 2 to 2 channels on the Neve or 2 channels on the API, push the faders up and monitor that way. Why? Because what you're hearing is going to be colored by those 2 channels. You taking a stereo mix and running it through 2 channels on the Neve or the API will enhance and change the sound of your mix by going through that analog circuit. You take your output 1 and 2, you patch it from DAC 1 and 2 to a 2-track playback on the board, and then you go to your master section, flip the 2-track playback, select that device, and now you monitor through the 2-track playback, because that's not going through all the circuitry on that channel that is changing the tone. You're minimizing the color of your playback, because your decisions when you take that mix out of the API and listen to it in the car, you're going to notice that things sound different because you took the sound of the board out of the mix. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all this that I explained on how to print an analog mix, this is what Pro Tools does by itself. All these tracks are going to a 2-track, to a stereo bus. And when you do a bounce, all it's doing is printing in real time or offline. It's printing everything that you've mixed that you're sending to that stereo bus. Pro Tools does it all internally. When you incorporate a console, you're recreating everything, but now you have to create a place for you to print it. If you think about it, you're going out of Pro Tools, you're going to a console, and from the console you're going to a tape machine. So now the mix falls in that tape in that reel to reel. So that's what you need to do in Pro Tools. You need to create a new audio track so you can take the output of the board, print it back into Pro Tools, and there you go. Let me make sure that I'm finishing covering this. Okay. Mixing all songs in stereo, 16 at LUFS with no clipping. The main important part there is no clipping. When I open a track, I can use Snapper, or actually I'll end up using Myriad. Let me actually show you guys Myriad instead. So this is a batch processor. That's fine. Sorry. Oh, sorry, that's an old shortcut. That's right. I updated all the hard drives. So I need to redo these links. So if you see here, it's telling me my true peak is negative 242. So nothing clipped. Then my program loudness is negative 20. In this case, the program loudness is your average volume. If you look at the audio track here, there's a good 35 seconds of a really soft intro. That means that gets added to the math of your overall average. So since a third of the song is probably the loudness is negative 24, negative 26, the rest might be probably negative 16, negative 18. Average ends up being negative 20. So I'll open up all the songs and I'll verify that everything is with close to negative 16. And I say negative 16 because I want to avoid mixes that are at negative 30 and negative 24, where you mixed it so low, and you mixed it low because you have a monitoring issue. Okay, and I want nothing clipping on it. Negative 16 is a good place to shoot for because it leaves you enough headroom for mastering. And I say this because then the mastering engineer can bring up the mix however you need to. When you start doing projects somewhere else, you mix according to the loudness that is needed, and it feels good for that mix. If you're applying a compressor to the whole mix and you're just squeezing it and it's pushing it at negative 14, negative 13 LUFS, and that just gets that nice tight sound and that loudness is part of it, great. That's it. Let the mastering engineer figure out the rest. Okay. But I'm trying to establish a sort of a minimum standard of it really shouldn't be mixed much lower than negative 16. Because if you are, you're probably having a monitoring issue. I should not see a mix that is at -3 LUFS. That means you just slammed it on the mix. And then mastering, I'll get into mastering now. Any questions here? Does Pro Tools have a plugin like this? What do you mean a plugin like this, Shane? To check the stats of your track. Well, not like that. What you can do is simple enough, is you look at your meters. If you're playing the song and you see there that it's some of these hits are hitting the red right there, that means it clipped. That, as you're playing, see, that's clipping quite a bit. Okay, so if you're mixing, you should always keep an eye on your meters. Okay, and if you're seeing red, that means you clipped. So that means you need to bring down your overall level of your mix. And that's really all you need. Now, you guys can, and I encourage, go to Ulean.
Ooh,
And
I just bought the Ulean Pro.
you did?
I did.
Good. Were they having a sale?
They were.
Ooh. How much?
It was about like 40%.
Sweet.
Bad.
I'll check if it's still going.
This was yesterday, so maybe it's still up.
Well, it's Cyber Monday. Hopefully they keep it going
That's what I'm saying.
till today. Okay, so you can get this plugin for free. And then when you're mixing, you can get, here's your LUFS, here's your loudness range, and here's your true peak. I am peaking right there. So now this is the mix prep session. This is not the actual mix, but I'm averaging -14 LUFS, which on a rock mix, that's fine. But I try to leave some headroom. So there's a difference between you making the mix sound loud by pushing it against the top, and and you mixing it so it sounds tight because you're pushing it against a compressor, and that's giving you a certain energy to it. You can have a really solid, tight sounding mix and be at -16 and have enough headroom for it. Okay. And the loudness part, how it's perceived by the consumer, that's the mastering guy's job of, now it needs to be stepped up there. But there's a difference when in Pro Tools you can push the mix to be loud. You're not necessarily gaining anything because Pro Tools is a transparent summing amp. If you're mixing through the API or the Neve, or in my room where I'm mixing through my summing amps, me pushing a mix through an analog circuit does change the tone, does create more color, saturation. The gear can compress a little bit. So I might make a mix louder because there's a audio analog benefit to it. That's not the case in Pro Tools. And if you are running it through some, let's say I want to run through Shadow Hills compressor. And this has some analog circuitry. This has some transformers on the inputs, and I'm pushing the mix, and this is responding accordingly. Good, that's fine. You're pursuing a color. but that doesn't mean that the mix needs to be in the red or anything else. You adjust your gain staging, like I said at the beginning of the mixing class, so that this is being hit the right way and you're shaping it. And this kind of goes back to Jared's question also of the mix bus. You're adjusting your inputs and your outputs on that drums so that you're getting the tone out of the equipment that you want, but you're not maxing out your outputs, and then you're out of headroom for the rest of the mix. So going back to Uleen, this is free. Download it, and this will give you the numbers, and then now you can kind of get an idea of where you need to be. Okay. And then as far as mastering of all songs to modern streaming -14 or CD standard -10, I say these are standards. That's debatable to a certain point. Yes, the majority, the average for streaming services right now is -13. Tidal and Spotify are -13. iTunes is -16. YouTube is -13. Amazon is -13. I just kind of have a habit of mastering things around that 14 range because everything's pretty much going to the streaming now. I'll use -10 for CD. That's based on a recommendation from a mastering guy in UK that I follow, and I'll use that as a guideline and try to take it there. Does that mean that some CD masters end up being a little louder, -9, -8? Maybe, possibly. If I'm doing reggaeton or some dance tracks, it'll probably end up being -9, -8, because that's the average competitive level for them. But I do it based on what sounds good. But I'm kind of giving you guys a goal to hit as a habit. Then the important part is specs with a true peak of 0.5. How do you accomplish all this? For starters, the Uleen meter should be after your limiter. Here is it's over here, hidden. So you put whatever limiter you have, okay? Pro Tools, comes with Maxim. Where did that go? All right, yeah. Sorry, for a minute this popped up and I thought it was a delay. So you set your ceiling at -0.5, which is what I'm asking you to do here. Okay. And release, you can leave it at 1, maybe good to just put it at 3, just so there's a little bit. Noise shaping is not necessary if you are, if you're not dithering. If you're printing this as a 24-bit and your whole session is 24-bit, then no dithering, no noise shaping is necessary. If you're printing this as a CD, then now you take a 24-bit session and you're exporting it as a 16-bit, so you do apply dither and you do apply a noise shaping at 16, okay? I'm asking for MP3s, so everything should be 24-bit, and that's fine. Now your threshold, I would put your threshold at -1, just so you're pushing down on the mix a little bit to tighten it just a little bit. And now you play your mix. Let me bypass this. And you're looking at your metering over here and nothing's peaking anymore. Why? Because you have a limiter that's avoiding that to peak. You see that little dot there, that little dot there? That is your mix hitting that ceiling. Okay. Now, if you have a good balance of your mix and you want your mix just to be a little louder, you can just lower that a little bit here. And now your average has gone up because of that. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is when you're using this type of meter and you're using integrated LUFS measurements, you need to reset it. Why? Because you play the song once from beginning to end, it'll tell you, let's say, -14. You adjusted things on the buses, guitars, you adjusted your limiter, and then you hit play again. This integrated measurement is going to be an average of the entire time it's been playing. So if you play the song 3 times through, and in each time you've made adjustments, it'll still average the first time that you played it where it was lower in volume against the last time that you played it where it was louder in volume. It'll give you the average of both. That's not what you want to know. You want to know what the current is. So you did all your adjustments, you're ready to analyze it again, go to the beginning, reset, play it again, and then you'll know, okay, cool, I've hit my target. Okay. I'm mastering to CD. It's getting to about -10. Perfect. So what do I need you guys to do as far as mastering? If you guys took the mastering course, have fun with it. If you guys did not take the mastering course, all I want you to do is get Maxim, put Maxim on, put your ceiling at 0.5, and your threshold could be 0, or your threshold could be whatever you feel you need to get a good level and a good sound, and that's it. And then you basically print one version without the limiter, that I see with no clips, and the true peak will be lower. You know, it'll be like that first mix I pulled up that said true peak was -2.4. And you do an offline bounce like that and call it mix, and then you do another version of it where you put the limiter, you adjust everything, and then your true peak is going to be closer to 0.5, or maybe you just push it to 0.5 and your LUFS are a little louder. That's it. I'm not asking you to get into anything more in depth with that. And I kind of do this because I've had the habit of printing a mix and then I bounce it with a limiter on to just raise the overall level, because some clients, if they don't hear a track loud enough, they feel it doesn't sound good, even though all you have to do is turn the volume up. So I'm kind of turning the volume up for them to avoid that, oh, there's something wrong with the mix. It's a weird thing, but it happens. Last step, delivery of the finished master to artist. This is very important. You've now done a bounce to disk as an MP3. You're going to take that MP3 and you're going to email it to your artist, and you're going to copy me on that email. So you're sending the final product to the client, and you're sending me proof of delivery to that client. Again, if you do not send me the proof of delivery, you will not get a grade, because I will take it as you never handed in the project. Even though you sent me an email with everything, if you don't send me the email, you never delivered the project to the client, so you never finished your work. Everybody clear on this? Can I get a thumbs up on your,
Yeah.
okay.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, cool.
So in addition to the
Good.
proof of delivery with that email and with the MP3, how are we go over again how we're delivering the files to you?
Okay, I'll get to that right now. Let me finish with the evaluation sheet because that's part of it. Cool. All right. Any questions from the mixing portion of this? No? Okay, moving on. Proper data management. These two, proper data management and archive session, we're kind of restructuring this a little bit because you guys aren't doing this on the server over there. You're doing this something on the server, but you're uploading it to OneDrive and sending me the OneDrive, okay? So all sessions have to be backed up. That's on you to make sure you have a copy of it on with your on your own hard drive at this point. And archive session is basically how you're delivering everything to me. So this is what you're going to do. And within this archive session, I need these products. So the project budget, which includes hours proposed, and somebody had a question on that. So let me pull. Already. Okay. I have an example of that. I know I had this somewhere. Sorry, give me a second.
I have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
Where would we be able to get the recall sheets from? Being as I already did this 2 sessions at school, but I forgot to get them from the server. So is this something that Lisa could send us, or how would that go about?
Just open a spreadsheet and do in a spreadsheet.
Okay,
So
all right, thanks.
let me actually show you an example of that. Hold on. I thought I had all that here. Mix recall. I said the pictures. I should have somewhere here a reference for you guys to see. Unless I have it on my recall documents. Sort of it. Sorry, some of these things I have on my laptop. No. think I purged some of the stuff that wasn't necessary. I will take, I know I had it somewhere. Sorry, guys. All right, so I will just create a spreadsheet. Put instrument, mic, pre, outboard gear, and then just do kick, V112, API, 1176, whatever you use, if you used anything, and then just do that for everything. And then if you did a mix, an analog mix, then create a new table, and call it mix recall, and then that's it. This should be tracking recall, and then just list everything there. I don't need anything more than that. And I actually use a digital copy of this, and I have a default document that is tracking recall, mixing recall, and time-based recall. So you have every outboard reverb and delay effect at Fat Planet. I have it on a spreadsheet that I write all the settings from the screen there so I can recall everything. And that kind of is part of a mixing thing. But if I dial up something during a tracking that we all really like, then I can make the notes of it there. And that recall is within the sessions, within that session. I'm trying just to find something where I do have that, because a lot of these, do I have? Okay. So again, put everything on the spreadsheet, and that's fine. Everything's digital. I like keeping it that way. So that session documentation includes equipment used, tracking sheets, recall sheets, and pictures. As you see here, I have recall pictures of everything that I did. On any time I did a tracking session, these are guitar amp settings for that, for those amps. Okay, so I need to see pictures. I need to see session documentation, which is your recall, tracking recall, including equipment used in session, tracking sheets, recall sheets, pictures of your setup. That's 5 points, and I see this. And then for project budget, again, that's what I was looking for. Budget, you know. Here it is. Sorry. So this is an actual proposal I had for a band. Doesn't have to be this involved, but basically tracking how many hours, what the rate is, cost. The rate, just put it $75 an hour. That's the cost of the studio. If you did overdubs, how many hours, and then editing, how many hours, mixing, how many hours, and then just tally it up, and at the end have a total, and that's it. I just need to see a budget proposal. And part of the idea is a column of how many hours you think it was going to take you at the beginning, and then another column of how many hours did it actually take you. And part of the idea of this exercise is that you initially create a budget at the beginning of the semester to figure out, I'm just doing one guitar, one vocal, one bass, one drum session. It's probably just going to take 8 hours to do that. And then you realized, oh, maybe I want a trumpet. Oh, maybe I need a cello. So now that kind of adds to the budget, and you kind of figure out where that ends up, especially with the mixing and editing. Okay. But again, bring up a spreadsheet. I need to see tracking, editing, and mixing, hours, cost at $75 an hour, your total. Any questions on that?
So, I'm sorry. I guess I'm confused because like technically for us recording the songs like at the school it's free, but like are we supposed to make up our own prices or is there actually a
Yes.
set price for the studio?
This is part of the exercise. Again, this whole class, the idea is Valencia Studios are a quote unquote actual studio. I'm the studio manager and label guy. You guys are bringing clients to me. Lacey is Lacey's controlling the studio arrangement and everything else, scheduling and everything. So everything gets booked like if it was a real session, and we're trying to treat this as a session. And part of you proposing a project to a client is they're going to want to know up front what the cost is. And then you give me a spreadsheet at the end with how many hours you actually spent. Lacey will send me a report next week saying, Jared, you spent 40, you booked 40 hours in the studio. I look at the budget sheet that you sent me and I have to see the 40 hours there, and I want to see how you used those 40 hours. Did you spend 24 of them tracking and then 4 of them editing and then 12 of them mixing? Great. I want to see how you use those hours. And that means that you did a 2-song EP, 20 hours per song, which sounds about right, and it costs the client this much. This is part of the exercise of you understanding and coming into terms that this takes a while. This takes more work and more time than you think. And when you see it in numbers in front of you, you can start realizing I need to budget things accordingly.
Gotcha. Understood.
Okay. Again, I need to bill it. So I want to see what I'm actually billing. For example, me as a tracking engineer, I bill one rate. Me as a mixing engineer, I bill as a different rate. Me as a producer, I bill as a different rate. So on a budget like that, I will propose that accordingly, and I might have a per song production fee. I might charge them $250 for producing each song, and that's on top of how many hours I spend tracking and how many hours I spend mixing. Okay, so that's your budget. And then session documentation. Once you have all that, you put all this in your own folder. Create a folder, call it Jared Steffen. You're gonna give me the 2 demos. You're gonna give me the session. Okay, you're gonna give me the 2 sessions, and the 2 sessions should show your editing, like you see here, your mix prep, like you see here, and that mix prep should be consolidate and purge sessions. And then I should see an actual mixing session. You don't have to do it like me where I have 10 different mix sessions. You can just have a mix session there. And then if you want to create another one, call it mastering. So then that's where you actually apply the limiter. Great. But I need to see multiple sessions there. And all that should be within your client's folder. So sugar, here's session 1 with all the different versions. Here's session 2 with all the different versions. Within that session, you have all the additional data from here, from your production company duties. If it's one client, then you should have all the documentation for that client within there. If you have 2 different clients, since normally we do this 4 songs, 2 songs per client, you should have a document folder per client because you recorded everything for that client different than you recorded for the other client. So I need to see pictures, budget, and recall documentation per client. And that's it. So I need to see 2 sessions, documents folder that includes your budget, your tracking recall sheets, and your pictures. Let's say everything's there. I can open up your session. I can see your bounce folder. Here's your mixes. Here's your master. And your master should be a WAV and an MP3. Okay. Now you're going to take your session. You're going to take your Greg Gomez or your Jared Seffen, and you're going to right click and you're going to compress it. That's going to create a zip file. Now you go to website, go to OneDrive. You sign in. I don't remember my sign in for Valencia. So I'm going to use my Full Sail one. Okay. Upload. File. You're going to take your zipped file that has all of it, both songs with the Pro Tools session, and you're gonna upload it. And that's it. Oh, sorry. I did skip one step, one very important step. Before you zip everything, actually, you're gonna take, I'm trying to see this without messing up what I'm doing here. Let me just do it here. Let me, What I don't want and I don't need is an audio files folder within your session. Okay, so create a folder outside, which is what I was trying to do over here. Create a file outside of everything else. And yeah, let me just do what I was thinking initially. So create your parent folder where you're going to put all the data. Okay. Drag and drop that session, each session, to your own folder, right? Once everything's copied there, you're going to grab your audio files folder and you're going to pull it out of your student folder and you're going to put it onto a different folder. So, and the idea is you're going to now have the your client, your Pro Tools session, your other Pro Tools session. You're going to open both folders. You're going to do a drop down. You're going to grab the audio files folder per session. Do I have another session to grab onto? No. You're going to grab the audio files folder and you're going to pull it out of your client, of your own student folder, and put it somewhere else. Okay. So for example, you create Greg Gomez. Here's your demos. Here's the client. Here's session 1. Here's session 2. You will not deliver to me your audio files because this is going to be this is going to be just too much data to upload and for me to download. Okay. In this case, this is 6 gigs just in the audio files folder. I don't need this. All I do need is your bounce folder with the mixes and the master there. So you're going to take the audio files, move it out of both sessions. Now you compress. And you send me the zip file without the audio files folder for each session. Once you're done compressing that, now you can put that back where it was so you can archive it for your own self that way. Was that too confusing, or you guys understood that? Because it's very important. I don't want to be downloading.
I get it. Yeah, because
So you just don't want the audio files, like, at all? You're just basically seeing the routing and everything, organization. Okay.
and listening to the bounce.
Yeah,
Okay. I get it.
I'm gonna judge everything by what if I see 4 instruments on your session, I'll listen to the mix. I have to hear 4 instruments. If I'm gonna open the session and I'm gonna see Pro Tools will pop up. It says you're missing 100 audio files. Fine, no problem. I'm gonna see blank blocks of Pro Tools sessions. Everything's gonna look like this to me. Everything's gonna look like that. I'm not gonna be able to see any detail, but that doesn't stop me from knowing, oh, what's this? Why is this extra stuff muted there and you didn't clean it? Oh, let me zoom in. You did or you did not fade everything in correctly. Let me go to the next spot. Oh, there's a crossfade, good. Crossfade, good. Oh, you forgot to do a fade out. That's points off because you didn't do a fade out. And I'll be able to do everything that way. Also, even if the audio files are missing, this will still show up. The difference is instead of them showing up this way, that'll be in italics. And everything that's in italics means that audio file is missing. So all this region bin will show up in italics. Then I'll go to your consolidated and purged session, too long. It's loading it without the plugins. I'll come here and I'll still see everything bold, but it'll be in italics and bold. And I'll still be able to see everything. Everything will look like this. I'll triple click. I'll see that everything's bold. There's no audio clips. And they're all whole files. Everything's labeled correctly. I'll look and nothing should say audio file 1, audio file 2. Everything's labeled correctly. Everything is color coded. Everything's organized. I can go to your mix window. I can see that everything's bussed correctly, that you're printing everything the correct way, that there's nothing missing. I can grade you on all that without actually having the audio files. I don't need the audio files for that. Because at this point, I'm not going to necessarily judge you on the quality of the recording of that one instrument. I'm just making sure that you followed all the steps. Cool, Shane?
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
All right. So any questions? Andrew, is that clear with how you're putting things on OneDrive?
Yes, just how do we get to OneDrive again?
Okay. All of you have a OneDrive account. Every student has a OneDrive account. You can go to Microsoft 360 and access your emails there, and you should be able to go to OneDrive through that, or just go to onedrive.com, sign in and use your Valencia username or email and password to sign in, and you'll have your account there. Okay. Then create and then upload your folder there. So for example, let me actually go through the whole process. Valencia, student, Greg Gomez, open.
So basically we will be uploading to our OneDrive and then sending you the link of our OneDrive, basically, or that's the whole process, pretty much.
That's the whole process. So I'm just waiting for this to. I forgot I actually had MP3s there. Part of you guys not including the audio files folder in the session is to avoid you guys having issues with your internet. If you don't have good internet, if you're having to go to Valencia to upload all this, you're not bogging down too much the server over there. The whole session should be 600 to 800 megs, not 6 to 7 gigs. And then I don't want to hear excuses that you had problems with the internet because you were trying to upload 6 gigs of data for this. Okay. Now, automatically says share link.
Where are we?
Go ahead. I was just going to say a joke. Go ahead.
Where are we sending the mixes from Lacey that she wanted us to mix?
Same thing. This process applies to all 4 songs. So the Greg Gomez session should have the demos, should have Sugared, and there should be another folder. You can call it Lacy mixes. So you have your demo folder, you have your client with the documentation, and then you have the 2 Lacy mixes. Everything is going to be within that zip file.
10-4.
Okay, because I will open those mixes also and verify all the process for that too. Now you can go to your own Outlook and email it, or you can copy the link and open your Outlook software and send and you send me an email, and then the email that you're sending that to is right here, Gandia1 at Valencia College. And I put that link, I put that right there so you guys don't send it to my son, who is also Aaron Gandia, and his email is agandia at Valencia College. I am agandia1 because he got into Valencia before I did.
Oh my goodness.
So if you send it to the wrong email, that's not on me because it's right there. And I also put that email on the syllabus. If you didn't follow instructions, even though I put it exactly where you need to put it, that's on you guys. So go to Outlook. It'll generate an email. Send it to my email, and I'll download it, and that's it. Then the next step for you guys is go to Outlook also and send an email to the client and to me with the MP3s, and make sure they're MP3s.
Final question for me.
Sure.
I actually had a pre-existing OneDrive account, I think from when I created my Xbox Live account or something like that. So if I were to send it to you from there, do you need it specifically from my Valencia, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter if you, I mean, you guys all have, I think 2 gigs, or I don't know how many, I think you guys have 5 gigs of free data, free upload data there. So if you have issues with that, fine. I mean, I'll even accept a WeTransfer if your guys are having some issues. I just need all the data, and everything should be in one zip file, all 4 songs without audio files there, just the mixes and masters there. But I'm going through the OneDrive because everybody has free access to this through Valencia. As long as I get it and everything's there, great. I'm giving you a path for everybody to understand and go through doing it this way.
And the MP3 files is just the final mix bounced into MP3 format, basically.
So when you go to Pro Tools and you're doing a bounce, just make sure you check the add MP3 so I can hear the WAV file when I download the mix, but what you send to the client is the MP3. Cool?
Cool.
And
Alright, thanks.
I actually have to head out because I have a session. Any other questions? Everybody clear on what they have to deliver and how they have to deliver it?
Think so.
Okay, well, guys, it's been great. Thank you for your patience and dealing with a semester like this. Have a great Christmas vacation.
You too,
Take
brother.
care.
You too.
I had a little quick questions real quick.
Go ahead. Let me
Sorry.
just stop recording here.